central business district really need is more peace and quiet. And I feel that I have a very deep personal attachment to this building, the Fringe, and to the whole area around it, which has been described very well in all these various presentations. One thing that to me is quite touching is that if you go to St. John's Cathedral in the lunch hour, you'll find it's full of people, not doing anything, but just sitting. I mean, possibly they have personal problems or issues that they feel this is a good, peaceful place to come. But it's as if they just want peace. They want some place that's peaceful. That's why I felt very strongly that the central police station complex should not be overdeveloped. And that's why I was really glad to see that in the end now the proposals are being at least scaled down, and that great glass tower is not going to be there. So if we think about what's peaceful for people, if you agree with that, what I think I would, as I say, I would like to see more of the same, as it were. It seems to me that people in Hong Kong, in the central district, can't get enough parkland. The Botanic Gardens are always full of people, so is Hong Kong Park. But it seems to me that we could actually do with even more of these sort of green places for people just to be and to be refreshed. I would also actually put in a plea for restaurants, because again, this is the sort of thing that wealthier people perhaps don't feel so much. Lunch hour is the only time that people work, and the working people have. And it's a terrible scrabble in Central to try and find somewhere to eat, to find somewhere decent and cheap and quiet. And of course, if you have a park, people can bring their own food, and that's good. But people are awfully busy in Hong Kong and perhaps don't always have time to make something to bring. So I would really like to see more quiet places that people, quiet, decent places that people could eat and just get some mental refreshment as well as physical refreshment during the middle of the working day. Finally, I'd just like to say a short word about museums. And as I personally, and I do know I share this feeling with a lot of former government servants, I've got absolutely no attachment to that West Wing building. I do think it's ugly, and I do actually think sometimes that we now go too far the other direction, just wanting to preserve everything that's old. That's got some, whether it's got merit to it or not. And I also think we do have a very big problem with museums. We've slightly got museum-itis. When I was at a big seminar back when we were opposing the De Herzog and Muren original proposals for the Central Police Station. Lee Ho Yin, who is Professor of Conservation at Hong Kong U, and I think a very amusing and interesting person, was on the platform. And he was talking about this. And the way, as I say, that whenever you've got a building in Hong Kong that you don't know what to do with it, you feel it would be preserved. Say, let's turn it into a museum. And also, too, it's a sort of this concept of turning it into a museum to do with its original purpose. So he said, if Hong Kong had had the Tate site in London, they wouldn't have made it into an art gallery, they'd have turned it into a museum of power turbines. And I have to say that's right. It goes with some of the thinking that I come across in Hong Kong. And we already, I think, we have a massive problem. We have masses of massive problems at West Kowloon, but possibly one of the biggest is the museum there. There's an extraordinarily enormous planned museum and really no idea what's going to go into it. So I feel very wary about adding museum space in Hong Kong. We have a very low museum-going culture at the moment. That's something that has to be really addressed. And I have to say, one suggestion that I've heard, which I think is, I'm afraid I think is just laughable, and also makes my fellow former civil servants laugh, is the idea of turning the West Wing into a museum of the civil service. Although, some of us hope that we can find employment in our old age as a kind of tableau vivant, or sitting there as living exhibits or whatever. And many people have nominations for people who could be fossilized already, put in there. But I think it's a wonderful thing that people feel nostalgic and positive about the positive aspects of what has been done in the Hong Kong government. But I don't think a museum is the right way to preserve it. I don't know if Simon's going to talk about archives, but I think that archiving is incredibly important. It's a separate subject. And I think this is something that Hong Kong really is lacking currently. The will to archive disappeared. I mean, it's very, very interesting. It's almost a sort of British characteristic, this feeling we have to keep things for the sake of a written history for the generations that come after us. And as I say, I think that's way more important than a museum of the civil service. I mean, I have to say, I feel, if ever I see a government file, I feel nostalgic. I love files. And and the whole filing system that comes down from, I shouldn't get onto this, but the whole filing system that comes down to us from really the 17th century onwards, I think it's just tremendous. But, you know, you can't fill a museum with it. So, thank you very much. That's all I'd like to say.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for the comment on museums. Now, yes, I think the important thing is about what are the alternative uses for the West Wing and also for Government Hill if this is to be preserved. So that's why we have Simon here. Simon can share with us his views on the CTO West Wing and probably the tunnels inside the Government Hill too, right, Simon?